You're listening to the Future Tech Podcast with Richard Jacobs. Future technologies such as artificial intelligence, stem cells, 3D printing, gene editing, Bitcoin, blockchain, the microbiome, quantum computing, virtual reality, and exploring space are much closer than you might think. In fact, many early versions of these technologies are in play right now, and the companies that are using these technologies are the focus of this podcast. My goal for you, the listener, is to learn from these podcasts. You may very well learn something that may change the course of your life for the better, steer you towards a new career, or give you insight into addressing a thorny medical problem. Remember, this podcast and its content is informational in nature only. No medical, tax, legal, financial, or psychological advice is being given. If you enjoyed the podcast, please listen, subscribe, like, and tell your friends about it. Thank you. Hello, this is Richard Jacobs with the Future Tech and Future Tech Health podcast. I have Roman Teslyuk, Earth-AI. The website is earth-ai.com. Roman, thanks for coming. How are you doing?
Hi, Richard. Thanks for having me. Doing great.
So what's the premise behind Earth-AI? How did you come to create the company, and what's the mission of the company?
Sure. So I started Earth-AI because when I was doing my PhD, I realized that the research methods on analyzing geological data are not quite right. We don't really do objective big data analysis and then use that big picture to analyze our own data sets. It's very local and very sort of eyeball kind of type analysis. The vision for Earth-AI was to make geological analysis and research more objective, but then we moved on to improve the success of mineral exploration, to find minerals as a result of really robust tools for analyzing geological, remote sensing, and geophysical data sets.
So are tools used on just a local level right now by people? Like people will go out to a site and do a survey and use surveying equipment, or is it now starting to be more satellite images, or how is geosensing done right now, and how do you envision it changing?
That's right. Right now, every new work is always like you're starting the story from the beginning. Everybody looks only in the local data over their area. People love collecting new data, but they hate looking back at the old data. So if you have a mineral lease, you have to then, only can use what's within your boundaries. However, there is, hundreds of millions of data points, billions of data points outside of your area that are probably, some of them are useful, some of them are exactly the same as your mineral deposit type. You can just leverage to learn from all that archive data across the world, that all this previous work that people have done, and then that's what we thought. It's a major milestone to be able to utilize all the archive data across the world, learn from the previous work, and then help you predict where to look for the ore bodies in your lease. So currently, people use specific single data sets, so they can use a magnetic data set. They can do their own specific, more in-depth geophysical survey, like electromagnetics or magnetotellurics, which is looking for chargeable ore bodies on the ground. But it's very there's some anomalies, you don't know what they are, and it's always like you interpreting you have to collect new data, and there's a high success when you leverage the whole world of archive data to help you predict. And it's also more, efficient.
So can you give me an example or two of the way things used to be done and the way things are done now, with your help, and what the result change was?
Yes. Well, traditionally, the exploration success published by the industry is around 0.5% success rate in greenfield areas. Means that areas that don't have the ore bodies found yet, you're just going out in the field and trying to find something. The areas are huge, while the ore body size is typically maybe tens of meters wide and hundreds of meters long, but not more than that. So traditionally, what people do is it's either a geologically conceptual target, so some type of rock or some type of fault is considered to be prospective, and then you will send geologists out in the field, and they'll spend months walking around the area and taking samples, looking at rocks, and trying to find some signs of mineralization. Or you'll make a geological survey, which means you'll hire a plane with a sensor, and you'll fly it across the area. It's a bit costly. And then after that, you have physical anomalies, and then you hope to interpret some of the physical anomalies to be linked with geology. In our case, what we do is we run the analysis that trains on all the available data that we got. We have all Australia, and then we are ingesting at the moment South America, Africa, and North America. And we then predict onto the areas where we want to go. And we have precise locations of high probability of being in our body. So we send our crew, and it takes them 2 weeks to cover an area of 100 by 100 miles. So we're moving very, very fast. And they only check the areas with high probability. And our measured success rate is 50 times more than the industry success rate. We last year we checked 132 targets, and 35 of them were actual confirmed prospects. So elevated chemical content in the soil or rock on the ground. So our success rate is 26% versus 5% industry, and it's also very cheap to just go into the cherry pick the best places if you know where to go.
So what are some of the tools, the new tools of geosensing that you're using, and how are they beneficial?
Sure. So the best and the most important invention that we did is it's a neural network system, a geological training, AI training system that learns on all the data-rich areas that have been previously explored, taking into account geochemical data, which is what people grab, taking soil samples, send it to the laboratory, made the analysis. They know the chemical contents of all of that soil rock, geophysical data, so it's gravity, magnetics, and radiometry, so uranium, thorium, and potassium radiometry, and also multispectral remote sensing data from the satellites. So all these three types of data sets are available on each in each region, and then the neural network learns from all these regions together and generalizes the knowledge to predict.
So have there been any new revelations that have come, maybe looking at global climate change or, deforestation or other effects on Earth? I mean, are there any earthwide surveys that are being impacted by the new technology coming out and, by your system?
Well, we work in the mineral exploration space. Potentially, our technology can be used for, mineral enrichment is also mineral contamination. Depends what view you take. So potentially, we can do a survey on the soil and see how contaminated it is, just using the same technology we have. But our focus in mineral exploration was still quite a small company. So we haven't done anything in the environmental space.
Okay, so of the mineral exploration, are there any minerals you're focused on, and these particularly different minerals to find? I mean, what's your focus within the field?
Yeah, sure. We are focused on technology metals that are super important for the growth of the high tech industries. So mainly base metals, so copper, zinc, nickel, lithium, vanadium. Out of our projects right now, you can only find what's actually in the ground. So we have copper, zinc projects and vanadium projects. And the first one we're actually going to drill is a vanadium project. And vanadium is good for two things. One, it makes the steel very, very strong, and two, it's used in the vanadium redox batteries, which can be a better solution than lithium batteries for like bulk energy storage for large infrastructure.
So where are some of these minerals you mentioned and these elements located right now on Earth, and what kind of geological features are they located in, and any specifics on the equipment that's new that is either being used or you want to use in order to help find more of these?
Sure. Yeah, that's a very important question. It's only half, like not even half, but it's even like less of the job to. I mean, it is actually maybe like long term. It's actually super important, but right now for us, we can feel it's only half of the job to find where to go. The rest is actually to have cost-efficient tools to follow it up and develop the project. The minerals industry and mining is very sort of costly to very capex intensive. So we decided to become a fully integrated mineral exploration company. So we have our own teams to go out and check the sites. We have the geophysical drone that can very quickly perform aeromagnetic surveys. And we're also building our own autonomous drilling rig that will be much more efficient, much more cost efficient at drilling. So drilling is, after you find the prospect at the surface, you need to estimate how big it is underground. So drilling is like a biopsy for ore bodies. So you have to drill to confirm how big is the ore body. So yeah, we have a couple of those R&D projects. Drilling is by far the most challenging to do because there's a diesel engine, there is hydraulics, in terms of mud system that's pumping down to lubricate the drill bit and take out the core. And then what we are doing is we are attaching sensors to all the parts in the drill, and then automating the control sticks to move by themselves according to the new data that comes in from the drill.
Okay. Is drilling the primary method by which what you want to optimize with your data, or is it to be able to scope out sites so that you may not, I guess your drill to success or drill to positive hit ratio is as high as possible?
So it's not the primary. So the primary is the primary method for us to validate our prediction is the surface rock and soil sampling. Right now, it's done by teams of geologists. In the future, we plan to develop a small rover, like a Martian rover, but much smaller, so it can just drive around and take those samples by itself. But drilling is ultimately very important when you move from exploration stage to production stage, to feasibility and production stage. So you require drilling anyway. So that's a super important problem in terms of the cost for mineral exploration, to lower the cost of drilling and have the drilling capability in-house.
Okay. So is your data going to be licensed to other companies? Is it considered public domain? Is it considered private? I mean, when you get data on a feature or a part of land, I guess if the land is privately owned, you have the rights to the data, but what about satellite imagery, for instance? Is that public domain or private domain?
So we use a lot of public domain data to train the model. The land that we explore is so there's multiple layers of land ownership. We obviously don't care about but it doesn't affect us all the sort of other like above ground ownership. What we worry about is what's underground, and that's called the mineral rights, the mineral leases. We do have to have what we really need is not to have any other exploration company or mining company to own the minerals, but then we just have to have good relationship and have an agreement with the landowner on the land they are okay with us coming in and doing the exploration work. our data that we produce, it's basically private. We don't really release it right now, but after the end of our lease, it will become public. Like all the exploration work we've done on the area will become public domain.
How often are you in an area where people have done survey work or testing of the soil and all that years ago, but the data is just hidden away or archived or hard to find? Do you spend much effort in looking for old data, or are most of the sites you go to new and no one's ever been there?
Yeah, so we mostly go to very greenfield areas that nobody has ever been before, and if they've been, the ones we found, there may be a nearby site which is 20 miles away where somebody has never been, but usually we that's why the sites are free and nobody has a license on it, because nobody knew that there is anything there. So that's an advantage for us, that we can go out and explore an area that nobody has ever knew about before. We can acquire the land straight away. But on the other side, getting new data is a very important thing, and that's what we're doing all the time to enrich our database. So it is our constant work. Like for any AI company, half of the effort is building the technology, and the rest is building your databases, cleaning them up, adding new data. So we do spend a lot of time digging through old databases and cleaning them up.
Well, tell me a little bit about the AI component. What kind of things are you training it on? What do you want it to pick up and figure out for you?
Yeah, so as I said previously, we train it on the data-rich regions that have had exploration mining activity in the past, and what we try is to generalize let's say we're looking for copper, want to generalize the remote sensing, geophysical, and geochemical footprint of copper deposits, and then be able to identify those footprints elsewhere in unexplored areas.
Okay. How good have your AI systems gotten? Have you got much higher ratio of site selection to verifying if there's actually deposits below the surface?
So after we've done the analysis and we have all the predictions, that's when it's kind of, to stay objective, you just have to go and validate most of the sites. The more sort of handpicking you do, just by looking at it without actually having a robust process. What we believe, every site, every prediction has a deserves to be checked in the field. So we try to just be as quick as possible in the field and go and check as many of them as possible. In the office side, we optimize the models. The best we have is 100% precision, 70% recall. So we're taking trying to avoid the false positives. Just first we go for the high precision ones that have a highest chance to be actually a prospect, and after that we go for highest recall, which means not losing out on any false negatives. And then that's just our workflow to go and check the sites.
How much better do you think you can get at assessing sites just using a small amount of data? Is there a lot of room for improvement? Have you seen a lot of improvement? What do you think is the upper limit?
I don't know, actually. well, there is a lot of room, right? So our success rate is, every fourth of our prediction is a prospect. There is a lot of room. We want to, ideally have 100% success rate, where we know from the office, we know where are the best new mines, and we just never wrong. And we just, secure that land, and we just, if we're super confident, then that'd be great. But I would say, right now the success rate is not bad, but it will only minimize the field validating cost at the early stage. Our main efforts right now are more on actual, hardware to lower the cost of prospect, of actually developing the projects.
Well, very good. Well, Roman, what's the best way for people to find out more and maybe see some images and, get a visual on what you're doing?
Sure. Well, follow us on LinkedIn. We post videos half regularly on our work. Our website, www.earth-ai.com. We do post news there as well, or just reach out. Our general contact email is just contact@earth-ai.com, and we are always replying very quickly. And just get in touch.
Well, very good. Thanks for coming on the podcast, Roman. I appreciate it.
Thanks so much, Richard. Great to be here.
All right, hold on a second. You're listening to the Future Tech Podcast with Richard Jacobs. Future technologies such as artificial intelligence, stem cells, 3D printing, gene editing, Bitcoin, blockchain, the microbiome, quantum computing, virtual reality, and exploring space are much closer than you might think. In fact, many early versions of these technologies are in play right now, and the companies that are using these technologies are the focus of this podcast. My goal for you, the listener, is to learn from these podcasts. You may very well learn something that may change the course of your life for the better, steer you towards a new career, or give you insight into addressing a thorny medical problem. Remember, this podcast and its content is informational in nature only. No medical, tax, legal, financial, or psychological advice is being given. If you've enjoyed the podcast, please listen, subscribe, like, and tell your friends about it. Thank you.